Welcome to another episode of the Theory of Conspiracy. I am Ro Lando. This is Mike Roth here, and we are excited. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about giants in history and if there's been a suppression of the truth about giants.
Nephilim.
So from the Nephilim, the Titans, the Cyclops. They exist in all aspects of history here, in our mythology, in our supposed reality, in historical records. But we're going to dive in deep to see if there's been a Indiana Jones-like cover-up of these truths here.
So you mentioned Indiana Jones. I just want to touch base with you about Indiana Jones. We had an argument about, 2-3 months ago about Indiana Jones. And I just want the viewers we need some context on what your thoughts are on Indiana Jones. Not the new movie, in which they already have our money. We're just going to say that out loud.
Yeah.
We're going to go see the new Indiana Jones. But tell me the character of Indiana Jones. What do you think about him? Because you kind of picked a bee's, a hornet's nest, a bee's nest, if you will, if when you're going off on one of your diatribes about Indiana Jones. Let's hear a little bit.
Indiana, right? Harrison Ford. We love Harrison Ford, and Indiana Jones is marketed as a hero to us, right? And I'm a fan of the movies, but then I thought about the Indiana Jones character, and here's a guy who we're saying, hey, he's protected these ancient relics from the Nazis, but did he ever give them to the world? In the world of Indiana Jones, the Ark of the Covenant was discovered in the first one. Do the people of the world know about that discovery, the Holy Grail? I would argue that they don't, because in the end of the first one, the Smithsonian-like cover-up, they just bury it in the boxes along with everything else. So is Indiana Jones a hero, or is he a history suppressor? I would argue he's a history suppressor.
Yeah, I think the other thing you said was, who's the real Nazi as well?
I may have said that. I don't know. I see a lot of stuff when I drink. But but he kills a lot of people in those movies. For a freaking college teacher, he has a license to kill along with that. They may be Nazis, but they have kids and families.
Dude, the articulate way that you just explained Indiana Jones, kind of makes sense to me. But I thought it was hysterical when you busted out who's the real Nazi at the end of it, and it just made my day. So Indiana Jones. Hot take, it's a Nazi.
It's like you see something, you're like, oh, la la, my childhood, this is great. And then you look at it a little deeper context. You're like, hey, what are we supporting here? This is an action film, but it's veiled in the fact that, that he knows about all these great things and he is part of that cover up. And we've put him on this pedestal as a hero, not my indie. So
yeah,
I don't know. Also, I just went on a rant with that.
And then also, let's talk about cultural appropriation. He went into the jungle and stole their god from a temple
of Doom. Yeah,
and multiple times. So really, Indiana Jones nowadays, he would be protested if they found out what this college professor was doing.
That they would say he has that white superiority complex.
Right, where it's
the white savior.
The white savior, the manifest destiny, if you will. He's going to go in, he's going to steal all the indigenous gods, and he's going to put them in a museum. For who? The queen? Now the king? Thanks, Indy. Let's jump into Nephilim.
And this is just the introduction here. We want to go into current events really quick.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We're completely signed. This is a topic we're ready for. So you can tell the Giants is going to be a good one. All right. So people may not know this. There's riots going on in France for a second time. There was some earlier in 2023. It was about people's pension. Basically, the retirement age was going up, so French people were upset about that and rioting. But I think it was more of that riot seemed to be more, hey, we're mad, we're gonna rip stuff up, but it was more respectable, it seems. There's been a recent one where a teenager was killed at a traffic stop with police. He was pulled over. He kept driving, went through a red light, just kept moving. Basically, every time they tried to stop him, ended up shooting him, killing them. So now the young population is upset, and these riots are, more fires. There's been some stuff where a mayor's family was attacked, and it's getting pretty hardcore. So apparently on the news today, or on the Twitterverse, French military has issued a warning or threat to the French president Macron that if he doesn't get everything in order, he's going to be arrested for treason.
Really? So what is the source of that? Is that, are they putting that in the mainstream media, or is this just because I will say this, I have to ask, because I haven't seen that in any of the major news outlets that I follow, Fox News or HuffPost, or I follow them all, guys, the Associated Press. I haven't seen anything just yet. But the thing that's really mind-boggling to me, and I know that being in America, we're American-centric news, and we like to hear about our own dealings over the world news. But I haven't seen a lick of any of these protests at all over the course of the last week or so. And so I think it is important to know that those are going on, because that's a huge deal. So,
yeah, the first riot that was happening, yeah, people didn't know about it. It wasn't on the news. I remember, I don't know, doing what I do, showing up to little parties and trying to make conversation. And hey, you hear about France? And they're like, what? No. And then now there's this stuff. So it's very interesting. Yeah, I try to read as many sources as I can, just to know what's going on in the world. Subscribing to different voices on Twitter, just to actually see photos, see things where you international news articles there. But you're right. You don't see a lick of it in American outlets, so you have to really just keep your mind open and your ears open. But that's what I try to do.
And I mean, so you're on the Twitterverse, I'm on the TikTok verse. You know what I mean? I'll say I see a lot of that going on. Also, the one thing that I would like to just point out is that when we didn't see a lick of TikTok being kind of seriously, speculation of it being taken down when they had the congressional hearings and stuff like that. There was like at one point in 2020 when Trump wanted to kind of get rid of it, but that was really short-lived. And then right after these first French revolutions, they started really cracking down on like what they can and can't do on Twitter, or not on Twitter, but on TikTok and stuff like that. And since then, since those congressional hearings, I haven't really seen much of anything. So I guess it's illegal. I think one of the stories that I heard is that it's illegal to post to social media in France at the moment during anything that has to pertain to the riots or anything of that nature. And that there's been like a social media like shutdown, crackdown. Yeah. Lockdown.
But just to go off what you said about TikTok, I think that's the way suppression is going to happen versus saying, hey, we're not going to coming out and just shutting it down. I think it'll continue to operate. You'll just see that certain countries, you're no longer getting news about certain events. You'll find that your feed is just stopped there. I think like most suppression, it'll seem like, no, everything's still normal, but then you'll find that your flow of information is cut off.
Right. And that's kind of what it kind of seems like. But there hasn't been a shortage of Nephilim giants in my feed. So I think that this conspiracy,
that's still a hot topic.
They're allowing this one to trickle through, just because it does sound kind of ridiculous. But you have a take on this, and I want to hear it, and we'd love us some giants here at the Theory of Conspiracy.
I love giants. Yeah. I didn't always love giants. I wasn't a kid who was like, ooh, Jack and the Beanstalk, and let me eat my green beans. I thought those are fantastic. As I started, going to school, things like that, world religions, the Bible, mythology, the giants were just a theme that you would always see connecting, and then you can make a loose thread. And I once told a story. Let me tell you this story real quick. My first and only time I went to Sunday school, my cousins were getting their, what is it when you're 16, not your quinceanera, but your cotillion. They were going to do the thing for the cotillions. So I think my dad was like, why don't you maybe do that? And I went, and it was like, nah, I'm not, this isn't for me. So at that point I was getting into giants to some extent. I think I had read the Bible because my uncle said I couldn't, or dared me that I couldn't handle it. So I read it and was like, okay, I've read the Bible. I know about it. Interesting. My favorite passage was about the Nephilim. And I think I was trying to make conversation in Sunday school church there, and was like, yeah, I think this Bible is very interesting. I like the idea of giants. There's ideas that are shared across books. It's in mythology, it's in the Titans, and it's also in the Bible. So I think there's something to this. And then the priest was pretty dismissive, just saying, well, that stuff is actually just myth. And I was countering with, well, that's what people believed at that time. No, they didn't. Okay, so you're saying that people thought that Zeus was just like made up? but they
like a
didn't
story.
actually.
No, they were
Yeah,
gods.
he was like a
followed.
Superman. He was a Superman comic book character that was like, whoa, he's not like. I was like, no, they believed that was we think of him as myth, just like people might think of the Bible as myth, and it didn't go well. So I think they just, he just ignored me, and I was like, I'm not coming back to this place. Screw that. He doesn't even understand how mythology works.
He's the Indiana Jones of the Catholic Church. He's
Yes,
suppressing knowledge.
thank you. So I knew that then. But that was something that fascinated me in school, is this idea of the Titans in mythology, how they were, teamed up with Zeus to go against the his dad and all that. The Bible, it's right before the flood, and some would say would be the cause of the flood. So these are stories that I'm fascinated by, and then there's modern takes on it. So I want to sort of go through that history, paint this picture of giants, whether you believe it or not. It's a fascinating story.
And you can't argue that there are connections throughout these
right. And it's very interesting because some of our earliest stories are about giants. So whether we just were into that or not, it's just, hey, we decided our first historical records and be about these characters who happen to be giants. They connect. They're our first action hero stories. They're our first buddy comedy stories. They're our first multiverse stories, which we'll talk about how they were doing all this stuff before Marvel and all that. So let's get into that. Let's start with Sumer, or the Sumerians. Yeah. And let's talk about the giants there. So as far as Sumer goes, Sumer is now, or was, in the Mesopotamia region. It's associated with where Iraq is now, in the Middle East there. It's thought of as being the first great civilization that existed in the world, where everywhere else people still living in caves, afraid of their shadows. Sumer was advancing. They had law, they had his written records, they had a hierarchy, they had all this agriculture, they had stuff that no one else had. And they gave us our first myths or stories, and they gave us the Anunnaki. Yeah, so I want to talk about the Anunnaki.
Yeah, so going back to Ancient Aliens and the Galactic Federation episode, if you haven't listened to that one, Anunnaki are giant aliens that some would say posed as gods in early civilizations. Basically, they came to the cradle of life, as we call it, and shared how to make fire, how to basic mechanics, engineering, stuff of that nature. In the earliest Sumerian writings about them, which come from post Akkadian period, the Anunnaki deities were a pantheon of descendants of An and Ki, the gods of the heavens, the gods of earth, and their primary function was to decree the fates of humanity. So this is coming from the perspective of the people, and they are saying that they are like godlike, and they have these technologies, and they're the creator of their civilization. If you go deep into this Anunnaki hole, you can follow it through Egyptian times, which they in Sumerian text they called it something different, but it's an ancient knowledge. It's an ancient storyline of how of creation, basically, and that's they were giants, and so we come from the giants, and there's certain times where they talk about how the Anunnaki bred with human women, and that's where the Nephilim came from, the giants. That's the idea. The angels in the biblical and religious texts, the fallen ones, the angels bred with the
daughters of men, and
the daughters of man, and that's basically where it comes from. So that's why they're called demons or angels or whatever. They're fallen angels because they came from the skies. They were thrown down from the heavens, and that's what it comes to. So sorry for my rant, but the Anunnaki connection was strong with the Nephilim. So I think if you put it in the context of how these stories run parallel to each other across civilizations.
We'll talk on that. So the Anunnaki were the progenitors of the human race, basically the shining ones. And then it's interesting because the Sumerians do have these images of the Anunnaki, and they're depicted as giants. They're depicted as being way bigger than the people. Some would say that it's because of their stature, because of they were, more elite, richer, more powerful. So let's depict them physically as being bigger. And some people say, nah, man, it's because they were big ass giants.
It's literal.
That's literally what they're saying. So from that, we have the story, the Epic of Gilgamesh, which I'm a fan of Gilgamesh. Let's make a movie out of this. Gilgamesh, he's a king from Uruk, which is a little city in Sumar. So the Epic of Gilgamesh, this is considered the hero's journey. So if you study creative writing, things like that, there's certain things, and you'll notice it just, I don't know, have you watched a Marvel movie and you're like, hey, I really like these movies, but the beats are pretty much the same. We have a flawed hero who's kind of a dick, but we like him. He's funny. He's going on a journey. He's kicking butt. He fails or he loses somebody close to him. It creates him on a downward journey. But from there, he realizes he needs to get motivated. Maybe some friends get him up, and then he comes back on his journey, and he realizes he overcomes what it was that he was not doing well or his own weakness, and he accepts something in order to defeat the enemy at the end. And that's the hero's journey that we talk about.
And sometimes it runs parallel to beating the bad guy. And the bad guy represents his internal struggle.
Right. It could be a physical antagonist. Sometimes it's an internal struggle. Sometimes it's nature. Sometimes you don't actually win. You just accept something that you didn't accept before because you can't beat this. And this all comes from Gilgamesh, or the beat points. So, and the story of Gilgamesh is the story of a giant and his best buddy, Bigfoot, in my opinion.
Nice. So you've gone on rants about his best friend being Bigfoot.
You always call him rants.
You're right. I retract my previous statement. You always go on these epic journeys with me.
I like that.
To and describe how Bigfoot was his best friend, and I kind of want to hear more about that because I've heard it a couple times, but I know the listeners haven't, and it's really
okay. Good. So Gilgamesh, I'm going to tell it the way I remember it for the story.
Okay.
Maybe different beat for beat. So Gilgamesh was a king of Uruk. He was a giant of a man. He was a demigod. So he was half god, half man, that going back to the fallen ones. And so he was a giant. He was like a Hercules type dude or a Thor. He was a big muscular dude. He was tough. And the people of his kingdom hated him because he was kind of a drunken douchebag. One thing he would do is the night before people were going to get married in his kingdom, and the virgins were going to get off to be married the next day, he would bed them the night before and take their virginity. So men felt disrespected. I think if my memory serves me right, I think he also did it to some guys too. He's taking their virginity, so a lot of people just didn't like him. And he was just a king.
Yeah, he sounds like a creep. That's a pretty creepy thing to do.
He's rapey. He's kind of a bully. People don't like him. So the townspeople, they pull you remember Unforgiven with Clint Eastwood?
That's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, where the hookers, the whores of the town, one of them gets their face cut by a cowboy. They put their money together. They hire some mercenaries to come into town, take care of them.
Yes.
Well, they may have been inspired by Gilgamesh because they kind of did that here too, where the townspeople get some money together. They go to this sensual, seductress woman. They send her out to the forest because they have been seeing that there's a wild man of the forest, a sort of Bigfoot-esque creature who's a big creature's kind of smart as well. They send him out there. The woman sees him, and she seduces him with her beauty. And they seem to have hot sex for like the next week. She just F's his brains out. And among that time, she teaches him the language. So, I mean, and if you've been in that position where
it's the fastest way to learn a language.
You try to get laid. Yeah. And you have to learn a new language from it. You're just going to learn that new language. So he's a pussy whipped and he learns a new language. He's like, hey, look, if you want to keep hitting this every single night, you need to take care of the Gilgamesh problem. So she brings him back to town.
Did she keep the money? Did she not even pay this wild man?
No, she was getting paid to.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to reiterate. Okay,
play with him, and I think, I don't think he needs money. He's a wild.
No, he's a wild man. That's what I was saying. Like, what does money have to do? What does money do for a wild man? Nothing.
Nothing but putang everything. So she brings him back to town, And I imagine this scene happening in a bar. First, I don't know if it's there. I'm going off memory here, but I see it as a bar scene. He's there, at the end of a bar being a douche. The bartender is like, man, sick of this guy always drinking for free, this king, and he's a giant, so he overdrinks my whiskey and my wine. All the men there are like, man, this guy took my wife's virginity. I don't like him.
It's probably mead back then. They probably didn't have whiskey.
Yeah,
probably. My fucking mead, and his stocks are going plummeting.
Yeah. So the Bigfoot man comes in. People are like, oh, there's a silence. The jukebox of that time just goes on silent. And then Gilgamesh and him have this just knockdown, drag out brawl. I feel like it's almost like the Roddy Piper They Live fight, where it just goes on really long time.
Over and over.
Put all these damn sunglasses and quit raping everyone. No, never. Rape forever. And they have this barn burner of a fight. And it's epic, but at the end of the day, Gilgamesh wins. The wild man name is Enkidu. Enkidu.
It sounds like a Bigfoot name. Enkidu.
So he knocks out Enkidu. He's gonna lay the killing blow on him, but he realizes, man, this guy was fun. So he ends up just extending his hand out. Says, Enkidu, I hope you drink, because we're gonna drink like wild men. And they drink the night away. He likes Enkidu because he's as big as he is, strong as he is, drinks like he does, and they become best friends. And they become like a Han Solo Chewbacca, me and my Wookiee. And they become best friends. They go on epic journeys. They end up pissing off the gods.
So did it work? I mean, did he stop acting like a douchebag, or did he just go on journeys and continue to act like a douchebag?
Well, he will grow eventually. I think what Enkidu did was at least get him out of the town to get the town people some journeys. So they go to the forest where they kill like the god of the forest, who's kind of like a Bigfoot beastman himself. And the beastman is like, Enkidu, you're not even a beast no more. You're man. And that was like an ultimate diss. Like, no, I'm beast and man. You can't say that. But it's true. He's losing his animal edge. They send some bull from heaven, which sounds like some crazy animal that destroys like the town, kills a bunch of people. They double team him, kill him. And then the gods say, nah, you can't be killing gods when you're just a half-blood and a Wookiee Bigfoot. So someone has to die. Since Gilgamesh is half god, they decide that Enkidu has to pay the brunt. So it's weird. He just dies. He has a dream about the death, and it seems like he's given Sumerian cancer, Sumerian AIDS. I don't know what it is, but he dies of some natural causes. And now Gilgamesh is sad. This is where he is having his downward moment. His
dark night of the soul.
Yeah, he realizes that they just survived all these epic adventures, and they're awesome. They're badass together. They've just like Hercules. They've survived these trials they shouldn't have. But because he's only half god, he's not immortal. He may live longer than humans, but he will die one day. And so after Enkidu's death, he realizes that he doesn't want to die. So he starts trying to find the elixir of immortality, and he starts thinking about how can he as a demigod be immortal. So he thinks about who was ever in that position, who was ever a man or more man than God and became immortal. And he remembers there's a man named Utnapishtim. This guy is someone who was a survivor of the Great Flood. This character was told to build an ark to prepare for the Great Flood by the gods. This character may very well be Noah from the Bible.
Right.
So he seeks him out. I guess just to finish the Gilgamesh story, since he's a giant, he finds this herb or something that's the immortality herb. He gets it. He's like, yay. So he almost dies getting it, of course. He's on a beach swimming, and he like leaves it on the sand, and a serpent comes and takes it away, and he loses it. And he realizes, he just kind of accepts that he will not be immortal, but it's okay. So it's not about the journey, it's about the destination, and that serpent comes into play again. But
it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. You mean it's about finding the thing?
No, it's about the journey, not the did I say that?
You said it. Yeah, you flipped it.
It's about the journey, not the destination. It's not about where you're going, it's how you get there.
Right. I was like, that sounds pretty macabre. It's about the destination. We're all gonna fucking die.
I thought I said the opposite. I was like purposely trying to make sure I say it the right way. So that's the Epic of Gilgamesh, our first action hero buddy comedy story that, I mean, it's Batman and Robin, it's Han and Chewbacca, it's Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, it's Lethal Weapon, it's all those buddy films that we've ever seen. It takes these beat points there.
Yeah,
so,
I love it, dude. I love that story.
It's our first multiverse. It features a character who belongs from another company, right? It's from the Bible. Now we're going into Noah world. So let's talk about the Bible. So that's a reference where we have giants, right? It's featuring a demigod. In the Bible now, the giants, one of the famous passages is about the Nephilim, about how, I actually was digging through the crates and found a Bible. And this was always a very interesting passage to me, because I felt like there's way more here, and there are, because there's suppressed books from the Bible. And it came to pass, when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for he is flesh, blah, 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 blah. This passage, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which are of old men of renown. Gilgamesh, perhaps. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was the only evil continually, and blah, blah, blah. So this directly precedes the Noah flood myth. And I always found it interesting. It's not a separate section where we're talking about the fallen gods and being the giants and the Nephilim. This isn't even a good passage. They don't even screw this
redacted Bible. Another
screw this redacted Bible here. Yeah, so blah 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 blah. Give me a moment here.
Yeah, let's get on redacted Bibles for a moment. So yeah, I mean, if you look at like my old family Bible compared to my new family Bible, there's a lot of stuff that's not really there. You know what I mean? And just the differences between some of these are just just and that's frustrating.
That's something I wanted to talk about, because you can go over different, and I used to have a interesting version of the Bible that had the passages there. So this one didn't even mention the Nephilim by name, but in that section there, it typically mentions that they were referred to as the Nephilim. They were men of renown, and then it talks about the flood right after that. In some passages, it seems to say that people were just wicked, and that's why we're flooded out. And that seems to be if you ask any Christian why we were flooded, it's because everyone was mean and everyone was bad. But there's certain passages of the Bible where it'll actually say things like Noah was the only one pure in his genetics or genealogy or generations, so that it seems to imply that it may not just be a sin thing, it may be an actual bloodline thing, that they were purposely trying to flood out the giants, if you would, the Nephilim, and continue on the Noah bloodline, which is I guess just short humans that don't live that long.
Short. Well, I mean, aren't there some claims that Noah was descendants of Nephilim as well, the Nephilim blood?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, in a certain way, I mean, whether it's ancient aliens or all of that, I mean, they're all sort of coming from a similar gene pool. I guess it's how diluted it may be, like with the case of Gilgamesh, like the more god you are, the more giant and strong and live long you have. So I guess they wanted just a quarter Ricans left.
Gotcha.
Not the full-blooded or something like that. But that is an interesting story with the Nephilim. And depending on which version you talk about. But I always thought it was interesting that when I saw that passage where it talks about the generations, that it's has that passage about the giants and then the flood right next to it. So it feels like there's a story there, and we should know more about it, but they don't talk about it. There are later passages in the Bible where the tribes of Israel are wandering around the desert, and they encounter giants that have survived the flood. There was one description where they saw them in the desert, and that we seemed to and the quote was, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, or so we seemed to them. That they were so small in the eyes of the giants that they looked like little grasshoppers. So there's this interesting idea there, and it's a weird idea. It's in Greek mythology. It's in the Bible. It's even in the Aztecs, that the giants did something that pissed the gods off that the gods exterminated these giants.
So if you wanted to go to the ancient alien, let's take religion out of it just for a moment. If you want to go to the ancient alien story of the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, whatever, they basically had engineered humans to what they are now, right? And so some say that the different species that were not Anunnaki were enraged by that, and that they were meddling too much, and you're not supposed to meddle in a species evolution or whatever, and they meddled in the species evolution, which in turn created us. You know what I mean? So the symbolism of Isis and Ra and stuff like that, and even the Virgin Mary and Jesus is actually a symbol of like the ancient alien, like giants creating humans in their likeness, almost like the Nephilim, the Anunnaki, almost. So that was one thing that I saw, just to take it off the rails for a second.
Yeah, and then there's some ideas with that those giants became corrupted, that there's stories about the men of renown. There's passages in some of these books that they had forbidden technology, and that just like Atlantis, right? Those myths that this may have been why we were flooded out. There was ideas that they were cannibals, the giants, and that they were just, the gods were just trying to, like, these giants are they're getting out of control here between their cannibalism and their advanced technology and all their crazy monoliths here, and that's what the flood was all about.
They flooded it. They flooded the earth.
Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting idea. I mean, we can go to the Aztecs, and the Aztecs have an interesting a story as well. It's called the Quina Metzin, the Quina Metzin giants. So in Aztec mythology, they talked about how these giants populated the earth in a previous era, in the Son of Rain era, that they were more than 10 feet tall, over 600 pounds, and that they were also punished by the gods because the giants didn't quite, worship them or respect them. And at the peak of their civilization, as they were taken over, that the great calamities came down and punished them. So another idea of that there was, and there's a lot of in Native Americans, that there was different ages that were taken out, that were not the most advanced. And I think we talked about this on maybe in the Terraria episode, that we may have been wiped out by floods and asteroids and all those things there. But they actually say that, yeah, we existed, but we were giants, or they were giants and they were wiped out, and they'll attribute constructions to them, which is hard, as an American concept. I think we're always like, me, we did this. Yeah, my granddaddy's pappy did this. But these guys are like, oh yeah, they construct the pyramids of Cholula in the city of Tichahuacan. I can't pronounce all that stuff, but they say these were all the giants that built these guys. And there's some interesting images of them too. If you look up the Quina Metzin giant, you'll see a picture, and we'll try to post this on the episode here, where there's like 20 Native Americans, Indians, that are pulling looks like a giant by a rope, and the giant has an eye that looks gouged out. He has his intestines pretty much laying in his lap, like, Scream style, Drew Barrymore style, and they're dragging the giant to a fire. So that's some stories. There's some image. I mean, we can't say, oh, that's evidence, but I mean, it's a convincing picture of what they were doing to a giant. And there's stories about that. There's stories from Native Americans about these giants that they went to war with, that would snatch kids, snatch women, that were cannibals. And there's a lot of interesting legends in America, which I'd like to jump over to now.
Yeah,
any thoughts about the Gilgamesh and the Bible stuff and all that?
So I mean, I think it's cool how you have these ancient texts that kind of sync up, and even if you sync up like the timeline of the events that happened, I think it's really kind of cool. Even if, let's say, the stuff isn't true, I think it's in the human psyche. Like, right. What if we were bigger? What could we accomplish if we were bigger? You know what I mean? Like stuff, and if it is real, it's just so I just love giants, man. Let's just get into the American stuff. Yeah, no, it's good stuff, Alana.
But you're right. A lot of, whether they're ancient aliens or whatever those ideas, there's that common thread with the people where all these structures take place at. You ask the people who built these, they say, oh, we didn't build them, even though we've been here for hundreds or thousands of years, at the ones who came before us, whether they be gods or aliens or giants or whatever, but that they attribute it to someone else. And that's an idea that is just constant everywhere. Yeah, it's on separate continents. Like, why do we keep giving away the claim here instead of saying, yeah, we did this, yeah, we smart? They're just like, yeah, I wish, but no, it wasn't really us. And the fact that these, we have different ideologies. We have from a religion that's still big today to religion that's died, to just Native American history, all saying, yeah, giants were here and they pissed someone off and they all died in the floods that happened. So interesting. This is what I was trying to bring up to the priest when I was trying to say, like, yeah, I think religion's pretty interesting. Yeah. See, they got giants, and he's like, no, there's no giants. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? Giants everywhere. And he's like, no. All right. So let's talk about some of these Native Americans. One of the, let me see. So there's allegedly stories of conquistadors who have had encounters with giants as well. That in some of their stories that they're suppressed, that they were, going through the jungle, they have their guns, they're going into battles, and that they are reports that they saw these large naked men that would appear in the distance that seemed like they were giants, that they were throwing boulders at them.
Oh, that's wild.
And that that some of them were teaming up with the Aztecs. So there could have been there's this idea that the Aztecs were battling the giants until the white man came, and they decided, let's work together. And it still didn't do anything, between, surviving. But that there's this idea that in the battles for America, if you will, that the giants were part of that. There's a famous story. There's the Lovelock Cave story. And this is interesting because we have the evidence here. So they're in Lovelock, Nevada. Supposedly, this went from 2600 BC to the mid 1800s. So these guys were around for a long time. It seems like there was a story of a race of red-haired cannibal giants, and I should say that with a lot of the giants, they're depicted as being pale. Yeah, for whatever reason.
That's some racist shit, Rolando. What are you trying to?
Maybe there can be black giants. I don't know, but they keep saying that these guys are white.
No, I've heard that the redhead thing is a common threat.
Yeah. So there was so the Native Americans would talk about this war that they had for a long time with giants. There was I hope I don't say it right, the Paiute Indians, Paiute. So they lived in the area, and they were on the giants' menu just for a long time.
On the regular,
yeah. So they would fight back however they could. So one day they had enough, and they decided we need to take these guys out. They had noticed that the giants all would retreat to this cave system, and that one day they decided we had enough of all this cannibalism there. So they basically ran up to it. While they were inside of it, they threw a bunch of wood, and they blocked it off with flammable materials, and they set it on fire, and they just made sure no one escaped. They would attack whoever, if anyone came out of it, but they just smoked them out, and that they ended up killing the giants there. And there were the giants were found in that cave system, and they were about, even though the reports that some were as big as 11 feet tall, most of these were maybe like 8 to 10 feet tall, which are still big, but they had found a bunch of dead. So it just shows that some of these legends, or maybe all of them, are based on maybe actual truths there. When you say, hey,
so I just want to reiterate, this is actually documented that this group of cannibals, let's just not call them giants, but they're a group of cannibals that would capture people, would go into the cave system, and then they found the bones to these people.
Yeah, look up Lovelock Cave. So it's
Lovelock Caves. No, I believe you.
Yeah. So I think the idea is that the remnants of what we found were like realistic giants, 6'6", 7, 8 feet tall, but the legends go that they're even bigger than that. But that's
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So there's that one. And the interesting thing with a lot of these is that there's this idea that there's a cover-up of not only giants existing, maybe being bigger than that, but that there's it may be tied into things like we talked about in Tartaria, maybe a civilization that was around. And I sometimes like to look at old interesting articles, or you'll go on a rabbit hole there and find these different things. So there's some articles here.
Yeah, let's hear some articles.
Yeah. So part of America, there's these mounds that have been discovered in America. They're like stone mounds, and just they're like, hey, Native American burial grounds. With some of those, they found giants in those, where there's 7 foot tall, 8 feet tall bones in there, and that they've been attributing these to more so they're not just the mounds of America, but they're the giant mounds of America, and that they were not just Native American, and I guess there's this idea in science that these are just the anomalies, just like we have tall basketball players, we have our Shaqs and our Andre the Giant and our big shows, that hey, maybe they just have a random big guy who has gigantism. Right. Let's make him the king, and let's bury him with that. And there's this idea that no, these aren't just one-offs. These are too common to be one-offs. These are like a splinter,
like group of people or something.
Yeah, hominids, something that they're all just giants. They're not just like so here's one from Boise, Idaho, March 14th. Where's the year at? 1903. Prehistoric bones found. Skeleton 10 feet long discovered in southern Idaho cave. Unmoved, unseen, and untouched for hundreds of years and hidden in the recesses of a deep cave 25 miles north of Shoshone, Lincoln County.
That's crazy. So I keep on hearing a recurring thing about cave systems. Do you think that the cave systems have to do with like maybe some giants that are still alive and they're using the cave systems, like it goes into a hollow earth kind of deal, or what are you thinking here?
Man, I think there may be something to that. Last week when we talked to Rod about the Bigfoot, there's this idea of underground tunnel systems. And the thing with that is it's one of those, if there's smoke, there's fire. And I believe that. There's a lot of Native American legends about these underground cavern systems that I can't think of what tribe it is now, but it's part of the ancient alien lore, that there was it has to do with this ant tribe. They're like ant people, aliens, monsters, whatever it was, that they came up and told the native people that, hey, there's gonna be calamity, you need to go underground with us. And that they went underground, their whole civilization, they were in this underground cave system, they survived the floods, they had food, and they came up to, when it was all over. And it seems that there is a vast cavern system underneath our feet here.
Well, it's not, it seems that there's a vast cavern system underneath our feet.
Yeah. And then even with the Tartaria stuff, the stuff I've been getting more and more into, it seems like there's layers on that. Even like, you're from Chicago, you know about Capone and this whole underground network system that allowed him to go from Chicago to like Cicero. But then there's the idea of, how the hell did they build those? Like, did it exist before then, or did they? Because it seemed more like they stumbled upon it and just kind of modified it, versus they straight up dug underneath the city of Chicago while the city of Chicago was a thing. And they exist everywhere. Like, I started watching a documentary about it, and Knoxville, Tennessee has one. Pensacola, Florida. All these places have these. Like, every major city has these LA catacombs. They have these vast underground networks tied to them. Yeah. No one knows who really built them, because apparently it was before the historical record, which sometimes makes me feel like, damn, Tartaria. Is that another point for you guys?
Yeah,
When we did that first episode, it's like, this is interesting, but I don't know if there's anything here. Now, like, man, there's more and more there. So yeah, it seems that you start seeing these connections. All these articles basically reference these ridiculous tunnel systems. There's even some. Yeah,
there's some in I just looked it up. There's some in San Antonio as well. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's caverns, and there's also caverns that go into Austin, so they probably connect at some point. Yeah. You think,
There's articles about the Grand Canyon that I don't know if it has to do with giants, but I know there's been some stuff where there was discoveries in the Grand Canyon where they found all this treasure that was reminiscent of Egyptian tombs, where there was like, there's gold, there's hieroglyphics, all of that, and then poof. There's nothing that comes of it. It's just Indiana Jones came in.
Well, you talk about the Smithsonian. They actually funded that expedition, the Grand Canyon expedition. Let me see.
Yeah,
and I can't remember what the it was a hobbyist that kind of petitioned the oh God, I can't even fucking the Smithsonian. Yeah. So yeah, it was a hobbyist that petitioned the Smithsonian to go do a thing, and he found, you know, all that stuff, and then we went back to the Smithsonian and they squashed it. No, it doesn't exist. Blah blah blah. Because it goes against their record of history, Smithsonian record of history.
Right, and that seems to be the idea that if it's not going along with the theory of evolution, or it may show other things to it, that just this is an out of place artifact and let's cover it up. So that's the idea, and that's what makes the giants a possible conspiracy. Is there a massive cover up? I mean, some say, well, why would they do that? Why wouldn't archaeologists want to bring these discoveries to light here? Why would they hold on progress? And some could say, well, it could be because the mainstream, it doesn't go along with their ideology that they want to present at this time. And I was actually having a conversation with one of our buddies yesterday about this, because I was going over some of the material, and he was like, okay, what's the overarching, like, why would they do that? Not pushing back, but just thinking out loud. What are some of the reasons for that? And we're talking about the theory of evolution. One other theory with that, and this may go back to the whole Tartarian thing, is that there's this idea that if we were truly advanced at a certain, and may not have been even at one point, we may have been advanced at several ages and we're buried under layers of our civilization. And that some of these, if these stories are true, and here's the thing with some of these stories, the Great Floods, which is a myth, which is talked about everywhere, and there's erosion, which may seem that that's true. You know, we will talk about the Solomon's Temple, which shows, oh, it's an incredible myth about a guy and his demons, and then we find that no, this may have existed. Helen of Troy, that was considered a mythology. This, you know, oh, it's a ridiculous story. It was a fun story, but yeah, there was gods in the war and all that, but there wasn't a real a city of Troy. And then they find out Troy existed. So a lot of these stories keep coming up that are part of our mythology, that they actually existed. Sodom and Gomorrah, that's a biblical story. Then they find it. What if some of these are true in the way that they said it what happened? Just as perhaps forbidden technology, or perhaps a real magic or magi, just like we've talked about. What's his name? The King Arthur's dude who
yeah, well, Merlin.
Yeah, there's these ideas that some of these ancient structures were either built by aliens or built by advanced technology, or even built by just sound. There's ideas that these big blocks were moved by sound, whether it's magic words or some sort of frequency or chord or something like that. So if there has been a suppression of knowledge, and the people on top, have suppressed that, perhaps is because they don't want us to know about magic being real, because that creates more power for them, or they don't want us to know about this technology that we had, so they have dumbed us down. And maybe if you expose Bigfoot or expose the giants, you got to expose that the leprechauns and the fairy folk and the magic is real, and that we don't actually that a lot of this stuff is pretty much happened exactly the way it happened. So I don't know. It's an interesting idea. Do you think there's legs to that? Is that a reason to suppress all this?
I mean, if we're going off of that school of thought of, I mean, that would be a reason, wouldn't it? If the conspiracy is that you have a group of people in the government or the government itself trying to suppress knowledge, and that's a direct tie to some of these stories that where this knowledge existed, right? Call it magic, call it technology, whatever you want to call it, ancient technology. Also, being that, like, some of the Tartaria stuff too, where it comes to, we're bringing it back to that, but where like electricity was wireless, you know what I mean? Like everything was powered for free, So if that's part of the story that you want to dismiss and say, oh, that's just a conspiracy, well, like you said, once one of these things come to light, then people start questioning the other things as well. So I think from that standpoint, I think you actually have a point there for like, if that was like I mean, I think you always have a point. Actually sounds condescending. You always have a point. Me and you are in agreement more than we're not, but it's feasible. I'll say that. It's feasible.
Yeah.
If the conspiracy is to suppress knowledge.
Right. And this is where the Indiana Jones comes into play. Of hey,
Yeah,
we have
Indiana Jones, bro.
We have an establishment, a status quo that we want to keep here, and
Do you
goes.
think that Indiana Jones, like I want to hear your heart of hearts on Indiana Jones real quick. Do you think that Indiana Jones had the best intentions, but then would just get hammered down with the bureaucratic nonsense of his academic institution and the Smithsonian? He wanted it in the museum so everyone could know about it, but they just put it up on the shelves. Do you think that was his choice, or was that a pay grade above him?
In the 4 or 5 Indiana Jones movies, I don't know if we've ever seen that scene in the movie, but that's an interesting one. I'd love to see him and his Smithsonian overlords. It belongs in the museum. And it's like, actually, Indy, it belongs in the basement of the Smithsonian. It's
like the masses will uprise if they know that this exists. Yeah,
because he would always say that, right? It belongs in a museum, but then it never gets to museum unless in the world of Indiana Jones, they're like, oh yeah. Because that would be cool. Let's see more of the world of Indiana Jones, where they're like, well, God is definitely real, so be good because the Ark of the Covenant is real, and if you piss God off, they'll suck your skeleton out of your body or whatever the hell.
Whatever.
And yeah,
your face will melt off, right?
And aliens are definitely real. Like, there's certain truths that have been established in that from the evidence where the skulls are alien, where it's, but do the people of the Indiana Jones world know about that? I would say that they probably don't. And so Indiana Jones may have, he may just be a small cog on the wheel, and
he definitely is. He's an upstart, of course, right? But he's going around punching Nazis. He's like, what about he's going around punching Nazis. Okay, you think that Ike would bring him in and be like, listen, Indy, okay, you can't. Your visa is going to be revoked. We're going to have to take it away. You can't, your passport is null and void. You can't be going around. We have international, relationships that we're trying to make here. All right. We got Project Paperclip around the corner. We need these Nazis. You're going around punching them in the face, Indiana Jones. What are you doing? Put that arc in the corner. We're done with this bullshit, Indy. I wonder, that was the reprimand he got, I'm sure.
I would also say, they'd say, hey, you need to put that holy grail in your pants because we're getting all these child support orders. You're apparently laying with women all over the world, knocking up women. Every time you go on an adventure, there's a new love interest, apparently. And then what was that whole thing with that little young Asian boy? Was he just your tour guide? Was there more to it? Because you weren't that far from Bangkok there, and if you were banging cock in Bangkok, we're gonna have issues, Indy. So that's what was it? Round
short round.
Was there let's, now that we know it's 2023, we know about the Cambodias and all that. What was short round?
Listen, dude, this is short round in Indiana's relationship is sacred. Okay, I love that fucking thing, and you're making me question that right now. That's horrible. Why are you doing this to me? My brain hurts right now. It's Sunday in the morning. My brain hurts. Oh my God, keep on going. Let's hear it. Just break. Just tear the Band-Aid off. Let's hear about short round in Indy.
I don't know. I'm just hoping he's not what do they call them? Girly boys or?
I think that's the politically correct term is girly boy. I think you're right.
I like him too. I like him as an actor. I like him as a character.
Sure.
Goonies, Everything Everywhere All at Once. But as a fictional character, I have to question
Indiana Jones,
the layers of that relationship when he's in when you're in different countries, right? The laws go out the window, so who knows what you're doing in that when you're dude. It's saving the people, white savior complex. All right, so there's not just to bring it round.
Indiana Jones is a suppressor of knowledge, and now apparently child trafficking. We'll just call it child trafficking because he did take that boy out of a country and bring him to like India, right?
And he did put him in harm's way quite a bit.
Quite a bit. And what happened to him after he left? The Asia. What happened after Indiana Jones? What happened to Short Round? I wanted to see. They should have. What they should have had in this upcoming Indiana Jones movie. And if they did do it, bravo to them. If old Short Rounds be like, "What's up, Indy?" and just that they just need to put him in. God,
that'd be so good. Yeah, that would be full circle with it, especially with he just won an award and all that stuff. I haven't seen it, but that would be cool just to so we don't have to keep thinking about what may have happened. Where I'm thinking he just left him in some country once he was done with him, and then was, trafficked back through, and then they're like, hey, you helped the white guy take down our god, so you know what we're gonna do to you? I don't know.
Kalima, they're gonna rip your heart out, bro.
So regarding giants, there's so many articles to go through. I'm not going to go through all of them. We're having fun with this. I encourage, if you're into giants, just look them up. There, you'll see all these giant bones on Earth all throughout the Americas, all that. I mean, there's those pictures you'll see online of giants, but those are pretty much not real. If you see like 50-foot giants, but it's an interesting take on that, and it's almost like Roswell. Like, why would they put it on the headline if it didn't really happen? Some will say, well, anyone can put a newspaper article out, but it's interesting. Like, there's so many out there that talk about all these discoveries, underground cave systems, a lot of wild stuff there. And so, do your own research on it, about the possible suppression of giants in America and in the world.
Yeah, I love it, man. All right. Hey, if you guys want to follow us, make sure to do so over at Instagram at thetheoryofconspiracy.com. You can follow me at bad_Yeti, and you can follow Rolando. Where can they follow you?
Ro_Lando, ROLE_LANDO on the Instagrams and other things.
I think we need more fairy folk, leprechauns, and giants on this show. Cryptids, for sure. This was fun. We got to talk about Indiana Jones, and that was always good. We had to rip the Band-Aid off about Short Round. It's not cute for professors to be going around snatching young children up off of the streets and bringing them to different countries and then just abandoning them in Asia when they're done, when they have to go back to the university and suppress knowledge.
Because you got to visit your dad in the next movie.
Oh, shit. That's funny.
We've uncovered just as many conspiracies about Indiana Jones as this Bible or giant suppression. So I'd say mission accomplished. Yeah. High five. Y5. Yeah. There we go.
All right, dude. All right. Well, hey, until next time, guys, keep a healthy distrust, and Ronald, you got anything else?
Yep. Stay weird and keep looking down for the fairies and up at the giants, and tune in next time.